Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
Arsene Wenger loses his voice, but unfortunately for you, dear listener, none of us have. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. My real question is, if his voice is still gone this time next week, do you think Steve Bold could just say, don't worry, boss, I got this, read out the team sheet and say that Petr Cech is starting in goal before Arsene can say anything about it? Maybe? Something to think about. And here to think about just those kinds of critical questions, the deep probing questions of the universe, is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive. Awesome. Hi, Clive.
Hello.
I know you're not usually up first, buddy, but this is you got to be able to adjust to the competition. You got to be tactically flexible.
I was just going to tell you what a fantastic open that was, and then I realized I was on mute.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Fire in blanks, but I'm reliably informed that he hasn't always done that. In any event, we have let the man out of his box. We have opened Pandora's stats box and released the Scot. He is joining us for the main and only section of this podcast, as neither Tim nor Paul was available, and also because we prefer Scott. Scott is at O_that_crab on Twitter. Hello, Scott.
Hello.
Which team are you adopting for the Russia World Cup?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Not England?
Can't say I have any English allegiance.
No, I mean, especially not with the dearth of Arsenal players on board. I mean, Clive, can I ask you a question just real quick? This is something that I've always kind of, as an American observer of Arsenal, kind of wanted to get your feeling on. When you look at an England team that is awash in Spurs players, in particular this cycle, but also the usual Chelsea, United, Manchester City players, things like that, and so short on Arsenal talent. I mean, we assume Danny Welbeck will make it to Russia, although likely in a substitute role. Theo Walcott doesn't look like he's going to make it into that team if he hasn't, in fact, retired from international football. I'm not aware of that. And Jack Wilshere looks like he may get his way back in, although I doubt he'd be starting. I mean, do you find yourself torn at all, or when they pull on that England shirt, do their club allegiances just sort of fade away for you?
I like watching England. I like to see what Southgate's doing. I think he's doing a interesting job, laying out a formation. He's been bold. He's been saying this is how we want to play. He's added speed. He's added energy. He probably misses a little bit of guile, but at the moment he's setting out a way of playing. So that's really good. I mean, the last time you saw an England manager do that, I can't remember when, probably Terry Venables way back in '96. So give him the credit where it's due, and the results in the summer will, no doubt, people will judge him from there. When it comes to Arsenal, I think maybe the sad thing is you're scratching around those two players' names, but really the sad thing is there's nobody else. There's no debate. We're not angry. We're not saying, well, he should be in and he should be in. And what does that tell you about your own sort of team, right? The balance, the ages of the players that we've got. We sold a couple that are eligible. One is in and doing really well, and one that's been completely forgotten about, right, in Theo. So, yeah, it does sadden me, but it shows you that the style that Southgate wants to play, we don't play it, and we no longer have those players at the right ages. Maybe look at Chambers and Holding, and then you compare them. A few years ago, Chambers was close to the England team, and now you look at Harry Maguire and James Tarkowski and Alfie Mawson and Keane, and they've all just gone past him. And is that because we don't play him, or is that because Chambers is no longer good enough? And that's a debate that we have in this podcast very regularly.
Yeah, and look, I mean, while I have sympathy for the fact that you have to be patriotic and support your nation, and I totally understand that. The fact that I don't have to sit there and pump my fist when Dele Alli finds Harry Kane in on goal and Kane scores, like, that's a weight off my shoulders. That's a psychological burden that I don't have to bear that you do. I can be rooting for Mesut Ozil to slip a through ball into Thomas Muller while you're cheering on Henderson and Kane and Alli and Vardy and all these objectionable bastards. So, Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, there's some low moments where you have to watch Eric Dyer lumbering around the midfield and taking very long to move the ball from one foot to the other. Then he walks out there with the armband. Moments like that I do find puzzling, but some of the things that the manager's doing is actually quite interesting. But there's a few players there, actually, the only one I've got an issue with is Dyer. I just don't think he's very good, right? So, but he's Spurs at the moment. Spurs smell of roses, and we don't.
Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I believe there was a prominent English journalist who once called Dyer the English Busquets. So surely you must be excited by that. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the only team in world football that matters, and that is Arsenal Football Club. And some good news, a boost right before the international break, in fact, with Alexander Lacazette returning to the squad. And Scott, I was kind of curious if you could remind us what we get from this player who we've forgotten. I mean, can you think of a player bought by any team, really, arguably, at the kind of price and with the kind of fanfare and excitement and expectation that Lacazette was brought into Arsenal that has had a more stop-start beginning to their career? I mean, certainly in recent Arsenal memory, I can't think of anything like it, and that's in part because obviously we broke our transfer record to bring him in. But what kind of player are we getting back? I mean, statistically, what kind of season was he having before he went out, and how important do you think it is that he's back for our Europa League quarterfinal?
To me, I think it is a nice addition to have him back. And it is weird that he has kind of flown so far under the radar. I mean, if you look at what the other big teams did, I guess he was kind of the third biggest, striker signing. Lukaku changed teams. Morata came into Chelsea, and then Lacazette was his price was maybe a third or 2/3 of those two. Both of those were closer to 100 million, and he was 50, 60 million. And then Arsenal went and broke their record again for another striker. So I think that's really pushed down his spotlight. But to me, I thought he's had a very good season. If you look at XG, he still ranks fairly highly, even though he's had the injuries. He
was our leading. 10, outside of Alexis, is he still our leading goal scorer?
The leading goal scorer, I believe so. Yeah, I have him 8 goals, and I don't see anybody else. Alexis was at 6 when he left. Ramsey's
still
at 6.
Our leading goal scorer.
Yes.
So I mean, as much as people have written him off, I mean, he's really done the job more than anybody else. Now, look, at this point in the season, for your leading goal scorer to be sitting on 8 is nothing to write home about. But do you see him coming back into the team and being able to fit into, let's start with the league, fit into the system that we have? There was a lot of debate about whether he and Aubameyang should be played together. Presumably the manager is going to want to get him up to speed for the Europa League, so he's going to feel a lot of pressure to get him in there and play him a little bit against Stoke in particular before the first leg at home against CSKA Moscow. Do you see them being able to play together stylistically, and do you think the manager will try that?
I think that he has to try something. I really don't want to see Aubameyang out on the wing because I think that really loses a lot of what he does. So if it's more of give Lacazette more of like a support striker role, so he can still remain central. But then it's the question of, well, what does that do with Ozil? But I guess maybe you give him a free role from one of the wings where say you can move around wherever you need to be. I mean, it's really hard for me to see him going with a 2 strikers, but maybe that is what the player personnel calls for to be able to maximize what we have, especially with so few actual wingers on the team.
That's a great point.
It's who do you put out there on the wings? It is a really just slim pickings out there.
Everybody wants to run the channels. Nobody wants to run the wings.
Mkhitaryan, Ozil. Yeah, you look at the guys that would go out there, and they all want to get in that central. They can all do stuff from the outside, but that is not their preferred spot. So it is a hard question because there really isn't a lot of balance in the attacking spots for Arsenal right now.
Yeah, and as you've seen, he's not a pacey striker either. So it's not like it even injects any speed up the pitch into your lineup by bringing him in. So, Clive, well, first of all, am I crazy to think that, and I do think this, by the way, that the manager is going to be tempted to stick with the team he used against Milan in that first leg, that he won't play Lacazette, that he'll keep Lacazette on the bench? Is that just crazy? I mean, Danny's hard running was really relevant against Milan, and I could see him sticking with that.
I think he wants to. Well, I don't know if I think he wants to, or maybe I want to. I think he's going to move Lacazette to centre forward and play Welbeck off the left and move Ozil inside and play Mkhitaryan on the right. I think maybe the Jack mini injury gives him an excuse. Maybe him and Welbeck will share the game, on that left-hand side. Or Ozil will go to the flanks and Mkhitaryan will move. I think if I was him, I would definitely want to make sure that I have 1.5 goal scorers, if you see what I mean. 2 people that are used to scoring goals. We've got a lot of people who want to support goal scorers, but not enough goal scorers. Our goals for record is really, really poor. And I'm hoping he plays Welbeck and Lacazette. And just touching on Scott's point about wide players, we really have got a team full of what I call interior players, people who want to play on the inside of the pitch, right? And this is why I sort of get confused when people criticise Bellerin, because how many players do we really have that like being close to the touchline?
I got to stop you. Did you see the outfit from his latest Twitter post? I mean, come on.
Yeah, well...
Wife beater, acid wash jeans. I mean, that's why people hate the man, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm not sure that outfit would look good on me, but it's what the kids are doing, right? So yeah, get fair play to him, but he's got the personality to do that, right? But it's not just about Bellerin. The players that we have that like the touchline, let's cherish them. We've only got about 3 in the whole squad, right? So, and I think as we develop this team next year, and we're talking about, do we want wingers, what formation we want to play? I'm thinking maybe the way for this team is to have 4 good, very athletic, very fit, very strong fullbacks and play a narrower formation and leave the wide areas for fullbacks. If you want to go to 4-3-3, it's going to need a significant change to our personnel. And we have a lot of interior players like Ozil and Mkhitaryan that don't really want to be on the wings. So let's get them inside. Let's maybe make it a narrower formation, either a Christmas tree formation or a Brazil 4-2-2-2 formation. Do it something like that, But I think we have to cherish our wide men, or we have to invest in them, because that's going to unlock this team, as well as a couple of good defenders and a couple of good centre midfielders. And when we get those things sorted out, I think we'll be in good shape.
I mean, yeah, it's so simple. Just replace the team. Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I was just saying, so I think Clive, talking about the 4-2-2-2. So that's, what Rasenballsport, RB Leipzig, really did last year to great. They were very narrow and really required the depth or the width from their fullbacks, but they were very compact still in there, and it really made them hard to beat through the middle, which I think is something that Arsenal would need to do, especially with their plethora of center people that want to be in the middle.
Well, I mean, is it rocket science, or rocket surgery to suggest that we should be playing to the strengths of the players that we have? I mean, I realize that these exotic formations are not necessarily what we're used to seeing from Arsene, but if you have no wide players, I mean, why not set the team up to play narrow, to connect through the middle of the pitch? Now, I do think it is very difficult to play through teams through the center. And I think that RB Leipzig has had success doing that by playing in transition and through pressing and winning the ball off the opposition and then going with rapid transitional attacks. I don't think you can pass your way through the center of most teams other than Arsenal, obviously. Look, I agree with that. Ultimately, my feeling on Welbeck is it's clear he adds something, but I can't put my finger on what it is. I mean, he runs and he's energetic, and defenders don't really know where he's going to pop up, and he gives them uncertainty. He creates uncertainty, which is half the battle. It's just the other half of the battle, which is executing from the uncertainty that you create that he doesn't necessarily have. I think the smoothness, the calmness, the technique, and potentially the finishing of Lacazette could really complement him well. I just worry that Arsene is going to look at it and say, Lacazette hasn't played much in so long. He hasn't been integrated into this side. He hasn't really played with Mkhitaryan at all. Not really. He hasn't played with Mkhitaryan at all. And then he may be tempted to say, we won 5-2, 5-1 on aggregate against Milan, so I'm going to stick with what worked there. And I think it'd be a mistake, because even if it is enough to get us past CSKA Moscow, I do believe we need Lacazette to be starting games for us in the semifinal and final of the Europa League if we get that far and if we're going to win it. So he has to try to reintegrate him, and I think it does start this weekend against Stoke. And that's why it's such an interesting problem, because he's got this guy Aubameyang who can only play in the league, and it'd be crazy not to use him because you paid so much for him, and he's a world-class player and everybody wants to see him play, but he has to get Lacazette minutes. So I'll be curious to see how he manages that. Now, I want to play a game with you, Scott, that we play on this podcast a lot, but you haven't had a chance to play because you've been stuck in your stats section, and it's called Guess the Groin Procedure. So you can go first. What would you guess was the groin procedure that Ramsey had during the international break?
I hope a minor one.
He's back, so it had to be minor. I mean, do you want to throw some options out there, some things you think it might be? I went with vasectomy, but maybe a little too young. Doesn't have kids yet, so that might have been a weird one.
No, he has kids. He has kids.
Wait, Ramsey has kids. Yeah. Of course he does. I mean, So vasectomy? Do we think?
It's definitely possible. Maybe he did get the vasectomy to be able to watch March Madness like so many people here do in America.
There you go. He wanted to watch American college basketball.
Was it definitely a groin procedure? Was it?
They said it was a minor procedure on his groin.
I didn't know if it was groin.
They said
it could
groin.
be anything, right? Okay.
Well, hernia?
Yeah, it's just too short recovery time.
Hernia procedures, they do it laparoscopically now. I speak from experience.
Yeah. It could be. I'm not sure you'd be sprinting around a training pitch in 2 weeks, though. I'm not sure about
with the vasectomy.
But,
yes, so I still think that's. Yeah. Do we agree? We want to land on vasectomy here, speculating about groin injuries?
Yeah, I went on vasectomy. I actually went on ingrowing toenail. No, I thought it could be something that small, right? It's just something that you think, you know what, it's uncomfortable. I need to get it done so I can finish the season strong. It's something like that.
Well, I think a vasectomy fits all those categories. All right, Scott.
Ingrown hair, some cysts. Who knows? It could be anything.
This got really unpleasant really quickly. So let's move on. And Aaron, whatever it was, we hope you're doing well. And we're glad to have you back. So I guess then the next thing we should come to is some talk around the manager that's been popping up. The manager's been doing a lot of talking, aggravating British journalists by giving more open interviews, more juicy interviews to his friends at beIN Sports, which I think is pretty funny, Tempest and teacup kind of stuff. But anything from his interviews and public comments over the international break that stood out to you, Scott, as being ear-catching or worthy of debate?
To me, a lot of this it's hard to really go too into depth because there's still so much question about or what's going to actually happen. Is the decision going to be in his hands, or will the board, and the board is in Stan Kroenke, will he actually pull the trigger at the end of the season, and what would actually cause something like that? To me, there's still where is the power is really the bigger question. Is it going to be his decision, or is it going to be someone making a decision for him to continue?
His comments certainly don't lead you to believe, though, that he's just going to magnanimously walk away and say, I realize that my time is done, right? I mean, he's still talking like someone...
If it's his decision, he's going to stay. Well, I think that's almost 100%. Like, it would have to be, something crazy happening in his life that would make him want to step away and not, honor his contract.
And do you think that there's any series of results that would change that? Or based on what he said and where we are in this season, you get the sense that in his mind, he's the Arsenal manager to the end of his contract?
I mean, we've seen, things go bad, and he always thinks that he can fix it. And, that's his mentality. And that's kind of the mentality you have to have if you're going to be a top-level coach. You cannot have really any doubt in yourself, and you always have to believe that you have a fix coming. Otherwise, you won't be able to get to this level. So I think in his mind, he always believes that he can do it and he is the right man for the job, and that I can't imagine him really, choosing to step down. I mean, this has to be, 95%, this is what's going to happen. It would have to be an absolute implosion, I think, not win another game for the rest of the season kind of a thing. Is
he moving the goalpost, though? I mean, it's always been judge me in May. Judge me in May. I realize that I am responsible for results, and judge me in May. And then he came out with this sort of weird judge me over the 22 years I've been here line. Is that a move of the goalpost? Is that sort of unfair in the context of what he's always said in the past about how he should be evaluated?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. But I mean, if you look at his results, his results are consistent. The points that he gets a season, it's always in that, low 70s, mid 70s. When he's doing well, he'll get up to over the 80-point mark. And, he's been doing that even, when our place has dropped in the league because the other teams have gotten better. So he has been very consistent over his long run. So when we were judging him in May, those were always acceptable results. So now I think if we look back, over the 22 years, we look and say, maybe that's not good enough anymore, and we need to change something. At least that's, in my opinion, what's going to need to happen. So even if we are changing what's the final, decision, I think it is time for him to go, even if he's not going to make that choice.
I think Steve Bold would be sorry to see him go because, as we heard just today, he really enjoys sitting next to him. So, I think that's important. So, putting that to one side for a second, Clive, I mean, in terms of the comments he made, I know there was one that kind of particularly caught your ear where he, I would say, not directly said that he was the victim of ageism, but he sort of came near the vicinity of suggesting that ageism was at play in the way he was being discussed in terms of his performance and the future of his position at Arsenal. I mean, do you have any thoughts on the argument that maybe there's some ageism at play here?
Yeah, it's interesting to listen to those comments and read the reactions, right? And so my first thought was, mate, this is not ageist. This is about points accumulation, right? And as Scott's alluded to, our points accumulation has been very, very similar for a long, long time. But the rest of the league has changed. The dynamics of the league has changed. We're sitting 33 points behind City and nearly 30 goals behind City and goals for, right? So the game has changed around him. And I think that's what he doesn't realise what he's saying there. What people are thinking is, well, actually, the game slightly changed. The requirements have changed. Success levels have changed. Criteria have changed. You are still holding this ship nice and steady, but to keep it steady, you need to do more. You need to score more. You need to concede less. And I think he may be a victim of boredom. I think he's more or less saying, I'm not new. I'm older. You are bored of me. And that's why everything I do is not recognised. Whereas my peers around me, anything they do is new and fresh. And a lot of things that they are doing, he's done before, and he's forgotten to sustain. There's nothing new we're seeing from the other managers. He's had periods when he's done it before. He doesn't do it in the same style. He does it in his style. And what Wenger's thinking, well, they're not teaching me anything. But what fans are thinking, we look at the league table and we're seeing how adrift we are. In the end, your results give you the strength, give you the certainty, give you the voice. When your results are good, people are really interested in what you have to say. When your results are poor or mediocre, people look at you and say, what's he talking about? They're not interested in your view. Your view loses weight. It loses credibility. And as a club, as Scott's saying, we have to work out what do you want to do. And I think within the club, there are people saying things like, we want you to think about your future. They don't want to say to him, we want you to go. He knows the values of the club are really strong and they don't want to sack him. So he will stay for as long as he possibly can and force the club into an action. And then you ask yourself, who is strong enough to perform that action? Yeah. And that's the dilemma we've got coming up in the next few weeks, months.
Well, and you wonder if, Josh Kroenke is certainly spending a lot more time around the club, and you wonder if the responsibility might fall to him with Stan building a $700 billion lair in Los Angeles that will eventually just be a huge biodome that goes over the whole city, somewhere within which the Los Angeles Rams will play NFL football. So then, look, I think it is patently ridiculous that he is the victim of ageism, and that's not because ageism doesn't exist. Of course it does, but it's because it doesn't impact him. I think football fans can put anything aside if the results are good enough. We've seen moral relativism at work in football, whether it was Liverpool fans supporting Luis Suarez through his little bitey racist period, or whatever the case may be. We've seen these fans be able to be moral relativists where winning is concerned. But I think with respect to Arsene Wenger, maybe the term is familiarity breeds contempt, which is that we have become so familiar with him that we may have lost sight of some of his charms, and we are seeing his failings much more clearly than we're seeing his charms. But I think his failings are a lot more prevalent than they were. Here's what I will say about Arsene and the appreciation he should get and deserves. I think if it had been a hotshot young new manager who had come in 5 or 6 seasons ago and done what Arsene has done over the last 5 or 6 seasons, I think in the beginning, he would have probably gotten more credit for what he achieved than Arsene got for what he achieved, keeping us top 4, the FA Cup, all that, obviously. I do think these last couple of seasons have been abject failure domestically with respect to the league, with respect to the performances in the Champions League. I think that even a new manager, even with the FA Cup victory, would have been under pressure, especially given the way this season is going. So I don't know that he's been judged any more harshly than a new manager would have been if they had come in and done the same thing. Having said that, some interesting things popped up within the last week. There was about a 3-hour period where we were going to get Thomas Tuchel as our next manager. Tuchel? Is it Tuchel or Tuchel? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I say Tuchel.
Tuchel?
But you know what?
Don't ask me to pronounce it.
Scott's not the expert on that one. How about we just call him Tommy T? So Tommy T was linked with us. So it got me thinking, there are a couple names going around. There was a glowing piece about Vieira and the work that he's doing as a manager and how well respected he is and how seriously he's taking the job. We've been linked with Arteta, Jardim. I'm starting to sound like the guys from the Double Pivot podcast with my pronunciations here. Tommy T, all those guys. So first things first, Scott, what was your reaction to the Tommy T links? Is he someone that you want? I mean, look, I totally am aware that he's fallen out spectacularly with Sven Mislintat, and that was part of why Mislintat left Dortmund. So putting that to one side, would that be someone that you'd be really excited to see come to Arsenal? And what kind of football do you associate with him, and how much do you rate his talent?
To me, that would be an exciting signing. It's a manager, appointment, I guess.
Well, it's a signing. He still has to sign a contract.
That's true. So to me, that would be one of the more exciting plays. He plays the good, strong, attacking football, in the Pep Guardiola mold. Really focused on positioning and working the ball that way through fast attack. So get the ball in the good position and then attack fast. That very classic German style that you see in the Bundesliga over the last few years. So to me, that would be very exciting. It would go well, I think, with what Arsenal are known for, with the good attacking style. So to me, that one would be exciting. I think you would have a lot of the same failings with the defense. So I'm not sure if you necessarily fix that, but at least Arsenal would play fun attacking style, which I think would make people fairly happy. I think you'd give us a chance to win things. It may not be the league per se, because I still think we are right at that, low, not quite at that same echelon as, Manchester City or Manchester United, where we can spend, as much money as we need to. But I think that there really shouldn't be any reason that Arsenal can't be at the same level as Chelsea, who has, won the league over and over again, because they seem to be going to a more self-sustained model. So I think Arsenal should be able to compete and win things that Chelsea has won, which would be, definitely put them in, conversations as the team that can win the Champions League. Not someone that you'd be a favor for, but, you get to the last 8, which Arsenal haven't done in a long time, and that they would say, hey, they have a chance. But, you look at Arsenal now and they get to the top, to the round of 16. It's like, well, they're out. So I think that would be a change if Tuchel came. Jardim, I think, to me, he seems like he'd be an interesting one, depending on how Arsenal move to the future, if they're going to start to look to go more the Monaco route of, bringing in young, not necessarily proven players to try to, kind of game the system that way, to, kind of catch lightning in a bottle with a bunch of young up-and-coming players all at once to do what Monaco did against PSG. So that one would be probably a little bit more of a counter-attacking style instead of the, control the ball, more of a control the space kind of a manager. So to me, both of those guys would be really interesting, and I would be excited with both of them. To me, it's almost like you were saying earlier, how if say Arsenal had changed managers in 2000, after 2011-12, so that 2012-13 season, if a new manager had come in then and say, had the run that Arsene had, I think that he would definitely even now be, fighting for his job. So I don't think it's necessarily that Arsene is, being pushed out, because he hasn't gotten
unfairly,
results.
right? Or because we just sort of lost perspective on who he is as a manager.
I think even, a new manager came in there, he would, be falling back. I've won 3 trophies, 3 major trophies, in 5 years, something like that. And, I have a little bit of rope before I'm, getting axed, because, we're not Chelsea. We don't, cut people at the end of the season after, winning the Champions League.
Or the league.
Exactly.
Look, I agree with all that. I think it's tough because what I wanted from a manager, I think before we got Mislintat and Raul Sayeni, is I wanted a manager who opened up a market for us to some of the best young talent. Because I really associated the manager not just with the tactical innovations, but with recruitment. But we now have a team in place that I think is going to take greater ownership over recruitment, which makes the manager more of a purely tactical signing. And I got into a lot of debates on Twitter about Tommy T. And I think he would be a great appointment. People say he hasn't achieved anything. We need someone with a bigger pedigree, a bigger ego. Well, first of all, if he goes to a better, bigger club, not that there are many better, bigger clubs than Dortmund, but there are ones that he could go to and he succeeds there, he may no longer even be a manager we can get. I think you have to point to Arsene Wenger coming to us from Japan as the last great example of us doing something a little bit risky and it working out. I think the brand of football that he played was self-evidently the kind that we want to play. He took Dortmund to the highest point total ever in the Bundesliga not to win the title, running fairly close to Pep Guardiola's all-conquering Bayern Munich side. Well, not all-conquering, but Bundesliga conquering. And he got them playing Champions League football when they had finished, 7th before he got there, or 8th or whatever it was, following Klopp's sort of mini implosion there. So I think there's a lot to like. I admit that he's not super experienced, but he does have some experience with the players that we have, which I think is relevant. So there's a lot to like there. Having said that, I think names like Allegri, Sarri, Jardim, obviously Simeone, who I don't think is realistic, and I'm not sure that his style would be as appreciated at Arsenal. I think he would be under tremendous pressure to win something big because I'm not sure how much we would love watching Arsenal play that way. Now, I can hear people screaming, what? Are you kidding? It'd be great to see Arsenal play some defensively dour, organized football for a change. I wonder if people would stick to that when they were watching it. But maybe I'm harshly criticizing Simeone for something that's become more of a trope about him than a reality. So, Clive,
I don't know. To me, I think you could look at what Manchester United has seen with Jose Mourinho, where they are complaining. They're in second place, and they are complaining about not playing attacking football.
Yeah.
So to me, I could totally see that happening with Arsenal. We're so used to, cavalier attacking football, where as soon as something changes there, and it's a completely different style, it may not sink in long unless there's big silverware coming.
Yeah, and having said that, look, Simeone has emphasized defensive football at Atletico Madrid, but that's not to say that he doesn't have other ways of approaching it. We don't know. We don't know if he might approach it differently with different personnel in a different league. Hard to say. So, Clive, first thing I'd love to do, actually, because I think this makes great radio, is rank for me from the one you most want to the one you least want, the following managers. Are you ready?
Oh, man, I want to talk about the managers. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you can talk about them all, but I just want you to rank them first.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you names and then you put them in order. Allegri, Sarri, Jardim, Tommy T, Simeone, Vieira, Arteta.
Wow, okay. I can remember all them. Well, Allegri won.
He's won. Ahead of Simeone for you?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Simeone is almost last.
Okay. Because is that a stylistic thing also?
It's not realistic. He's going to, if he leads Spain, he's going to go to Italy.
Okay, so just forget him for a second. So Allegri won.
Allegri won. I like Tuchel 2. Jardim,
his name is pronounced
3.
Tommy T, by the way. Okay.
Tommy T. Okay.
Okay. Jardim
3. Arteta, it's not realistic for me. He's a coach, 1 year as a coach. That's just a nice to have. He's an assistant. Vieira's got potential. He'd be next on the list for me. I think he's got potential, but I just don't think it's now. I think he needs to have a UK job to see what he does, and then have a little bit more closer scrutiny. But yeah, that's my order, and then Simeone would be. What about Sarri?
He's doing wonders at Napoli. They play some of the best football in the world right now.
You know what, mate? I know what I know. I know those guys. I don't know Sarri, if I'm honest with you. I don't pretend that I know every single European player and every single European manager, because I just don't. Funny enough, Allegri, one of my mates, Giles, told me about him a couple of years ago, and I started to have a closer look at him. And when you think about what we need and what's going to happen, so when a new manager comes on board, what's going to happen? There's going to be multiple reactions, right? It's going to be a seismic moment in our history. So within the club fan base, we're going to just explode with excitement because something's new. I mean, even seeing Steve Bold in the press conference today was something new. I got sort of excited to see a different voice talk about Arsenal for the first time in ages. So the new manager will be, if he's the right person, if it's an Allegri, the right person, we will absolutely love him and watch every detail of what he does. There'll be another flip side to that. Everybody will suddenly look at Arsene Wenger differently. It's almost like a player that doesn't play, who's injured, he gets better. The moment he loses a game, that person's going to have terrific strength to manage the media, to manage the backlash, to manage people looking at his every move. Right? So you look at Manchester United, David Moyes got eaten by that. He lost his confidence, he lost his stature. And so the reason why I say Allegri is what I think that's what the club needs. I think he has a presence and a respect. He's followed a big manager like Conte at Juventus and then improved upon what the guy did. I mean, that's the sort of person you want, someone who's gone into a really big club, not been fazed by the pressure, not been fazed by the fact they've won things, and then improved it and continued it and improved his record in Europe. So I look at it holistically and think what sort of pressure he's going to be under. I look at a young Tuchel. I don't know Jardine well enough. I think he may be, strangely enough, that his communication skills and his dour personality, he doesn't seem somebody that would be fazed by pressure. I think he's quite interesting. Tuchel's had issues regarding managing relationships and managing players and managing seniority within the board. So that would be interesting to see how he does under pressure. But again, with Allegri, the reason why I like him is that he won't come here unless the project is exciting. He won't come here unless he's going to be supported. He won't come here unless he's going to be funded and given a chance to win. So that's why I want him to be the one, because he's not coming here to finish fourth. I think it's very important the next manager drives our philosophy and drives our strategy. And I have this theory, Elliot. I actually think if Allegri comes, I think our self-sustaining model is going to be threatened, or is going to have to change. I think the money that we have in the bank saved will not be enough to take us where we want to go. So we're going to have to be sponsored by Walmart or something like that. Do you see what I mean? Similar to what Man City have done, to really bring in the extra commercial value so we can raise our wages, because we are hamstrung with our wages at the moment. We can't raise it, the percentages that we have. We can't do it. So I think we're going to have to potentially, if you want to get back, if we don't get in Champions League this year, our self-sustaining model is under threat. And I can hear people saying, don't be silly, Clive, that won't change. Well, if we want to get back and we don't make it this year to Champions League, I truly believe that's under threat, and we're going to have to try a different way to support the manager.
My only counter-argument to that is there's really only two clubs left in the Premier League that don't have a self-sustaining model that is similar to ours. I mean, you could point to Chelsea, but I think you have to be realistic in saying that Chelsea have turned the tap off, that Roman Abramovich has turned the tap off, that they are trying to be self-sustaining and they're operating that way, at least to some extent. Manchester City can create whatever bogus numbers they want because they're soft power backed by a nation, and Manchester United print money, so their commercial deals put them in another stratosphere. Outside of that, Liverpool are getting where they are, doing it according to a self-sustaining model. Spurs are doing it on a shoestring, on a budget, and to be fair, they may have sort of stumbled onto a golden generation, the likes of which they'll never find again, and it won them fuck all, so haha. And I think Chelsea are sort of operating self-sustainably. So while I agree that United in theory and City in practice are out of our league and we would just need some incredible variance to catch them, I certainly think in terms of re-entrenching ourselves in the top four, we should be the third or fourth richest club in the Premier League, and therefore we should be the third or fourth placed club in the Premier League year in, year out. I mean, do you disagree with that assessment?
No, I don't. I'm projecting forward, so I can't be right. I'm projecting forward to a new manager coming in and how we're going to support him. Now, commercially, with the Premier League wages rules, we are trapped. So we're going to have to do some real... We do have
all our new deals coming up, right? I mean, we are negotiating new deal, new kit sponsorship, new kit manufacturer, right? So we have the chance to boost that. It's a year or so away.
It's a year or so away, right? So I'm talking about... Let's just stay with next season, right? So with next season, we may have to sell somebody big, and it's not the transfer fees, it's the wages. right? So we're going to have to think about our wage bill. We have to think about our high wage earners. Yes, there are some people come to the end of their careers. Yes, I'm afraid Santi Cazorla may not get another contract. There's some housekeeping to be done, but it's going to have to be very, very smart. I'm not saying that we're going to just go out there and Stan's going to put 200 million in our bank account. That's not going to happen. What I said was the self-sustaining model could be under threat. We may have to project a bit forward financially rather than save as much money as we have. We are one of the most cash-rich clubs in the world. That model may change. We may have to go into debt to support the manager if it's the right manager, right? So if you're coming to a job, you want to succeed. So just project forward in your own mind and think, is anyone going to come in with this current high wage bill? I mean, our wage bill is, I think, going to be £230 million, which is very similar to Chelsea's. And you look at the trophies of the last 10 years, we're not getting the value, right? So we have to think about that. And I think it may take time, but if we change manager in the summer, I don't think we're going to wait that time. So it'd be quite interesting to see the model that we have. And I don't presume it's going to stay the same. It could be under threat.
Yeah, and I would say this, though. I mean, there has to be a clearer, laser-focused strategy for how you're building a squad. If I think Arsene Wenger has been guilty of anything over the past 5 years, it's having no clear driving principle to the squad he's trying to build. Look at the purchases he's made. They've gone into positions we either didn't need or didn't fit. We bought a £55 million center forward to buy a £60 million center forward 5 months later. We took a lot of wages and put it onto a left wing back stroke left back from Germany who then basically fell out of favor and stopped being in the squad almost as quickly as he arrived. We bought Granit Xhaka saying he was box to box and then realized he wasn't. There was a lot of money spent in a lot of weird places. I mean, Mustafi showed up and then it looked like we were ready to get rid of him. We bought Chambers. We weren't sure we want him. We bought Holding. We weren't sure we want him. There's a lot of this stuff that has gone on.
Perez.
Yeah, Lucas Perez came and went. Now, to be fair, I think Lucas Perez was brought just to be depth, just in case, as a backup, when we were crying out for more, so I can almost excuse that. But to your point, you're right. Look, you look at Borussia Dortmund, and Dortmund, on a fraction of our budget, built some really impressive teams by just being more efficient in the market, taking better shots at young talent and getting it right. With players like Aubameyang, with players like Ousmane Dembele, Christian Pulisic, Pulisic, and I can go on and on like that. So
maybe that's the model that we're going for, Elliot. Maybe.
Well, we could go with the hybrid model, right? We can go with the hybrid.
Maybe that's the model we're going for. Maybe we're going to go young, and then we're going to splash a couple of stars on top. I do wonder about the whole Ozil deal. I think obviously commercially it's important to the club, and maybe we'll find out when we got Adidas kits on and we get extra monies for it. But that wage bill really does hold us. It holds us back. I think it holds us back tactically on the pitch. We're forced to play a certain way. I am concerned about that level of wages going into one individual. It's very un-Arsenal-like.
But it's old thinking.
It really is.
I think to be a successful club in world football now, you have to have a couple of stars, and you have to put those stars on going rate wages. And I realize that maybe Ozil was not the guy to do that with. I am agnostic on that point. But I think if you look at...
That's not going rate, mate. That's not going rate.
Well, what I'm saying is going rate for your superstar. I mean, what does Barca play Messi? What does Real Madrid play Cristiano Ronaldo? What does Manchester United pay Paul Pogba? What does Manchester City pay, take your pick, Aguero or De Bruyne? What does... and you get the point. What is Lewandowski paid at Bayern? No, and I get it's really, really, really high. But I think also at Arsenal, you have to put the lie to the idea that you are trying to get everybody on a shoestring budget. Now, did we go too far? I mean, it could be a case of we were losing Alexis, we were staring at losing Ozil for free in the face, and much like Theo Walcott's contract that he kind of backed us into a couple of seasons ago, Ozil got $80,000 a week more than he would have if we had renegotiated it when we had a stronger hand to play. We didn't have that stronger hand to play, but to go out and get real talent, I mean, the guy's got 10 times the followers on Twitter that the club has. He is a huge brand. He is a huge selling point for the club to other players. I do think what's changed was with Mislintat and Raul in the front office now, in the back office, whatever you want to call it. they are going to be in charge of recruiting and signing talent. They are going to put the money on a spreadsheet, figure out where it can go, and figure out how to best and most efficiently put it out there to support whatever the next manager says is his ideology about how he wants to build a squad. And this is why I don't think it has to be some super experienced guy. I always hear he has to have Premier League experience. Who are these Premier League experienced managers that are thriving? Jose Mourinho's best period in the Premier League was when he arrived, having never been in the Premier League. Conte won the league in his first season coming into the Premier League. Klopp, I think, has done a really nice job at Liverpool. Granted, it's taken him some time, but he had never managed in the Premier League. I don't see, Pochettino's been excellent. I just don't think you have to have this Premier League experience. And the stronger the front office, the stronger the stratification of the roles within the club are, the less the manager has to have experience because he can really just be a coach. You look at Arsene Wenger, he is in charge of recruitment. He is in charge of paying the staff. He is in charge of paying the players and renegotiating their contracts and finding new players and putting the team out on the pitch. And I think the next manager is going to be able to just say, I'm going to just go coach the team. And that's my job. And I'll tell the front office, hey, I could really use a new left wing back, or I really need a right wide forward. And they'll say, all right, we'll figure it out. But that's about it. So, Scott, do you think that these new roles, these new faces in the club make the role of the new manager a lot more simplified, which means you can afford to take a risk on someone based on their tactical philosophy, their ideology, as opposed to them needing to, be this experienced hand at steering a huge operation?
Yeah, and and a lot of this could be just being American, and this is the the model in American sports where the manager is the first team coach, and that is really all that they are in charge of.
With really some notable exceptions. I don't think you'd say that about like a Bill Belichick at the New England Patriots or something, but sure.
And a lot of times when that happens, it's the coach has, a huge amount of leverage and he's able to really work for control. And a lot of times that really blows up and it doesn't really work out well. You can look at Doc Rivers with the Clippers, where he just goes and says, oh, that guy used to play for me. Or I remember when he played in the Eastern Conference for me, I'm going to sign him, even though that was 5 years ago. And the Clippers, really imploded from their team. So to me, a lot of that is, it's in modern sports, it feels like there's so much going on that it's really hard to have one person be able to control that much. And you really have to get the absolute right person. Otherwise, things can really go bad really quickly. But you also really need a philosophy that drives you to be able to do that, to be able to have everybody understanding what we're working towards. So, you can't have, constant turnover at the top and constantly changing what you're looking for, because then you're going to have lots of waste and you're going to be discarding players. And I think that that's something that would absolutely kill you with this new wage structure that's, being imposed in the Premier League, where you cannot, change your wages, without, increasing your revenue.
Your commercial revenues, yeah.
Exactly. So to me, I think it is important that, Arsenal seem to be having two guys that have power and that can create a philosophy that will, guide the club, and that they can get people in there and that you can get everybody moving in the right direction. Because that is something that I think, you touched on this earlier, where what is the philosophy of Arsenal that Arsene Wenger
has there been one?
Building right now?
Is that the problem really with Arsene, that he hasn't had a coherent squad building philosophy in the past few seasons?
It really does seem that, because you look back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and it was at the very end of the tiki taka. Arsenal were short passing, slick passing, really quick, but they moved and held possession. But now you look at Arsenal, and there really isn't the kind of players to be able to do that on the team. There's no Arteta, there's no Rosicky, the players aren't there to be able to do that style anymore. There's no Cazorla that's healthy to be able to do it. Then it kind of seemed like he was kind of looking to transfer into more of a counter-attacking team. He saw Leicester be able to do that. I think that was almost the plan after that season that we came in second to Leicester, is that we're going to kind of emulate that. We're going to sit back and we're going to become a counter-attacking team. But then we didn't really have the players for that, and he kind of changed his mind. And now it's like maybe we're going to be a pressing team. And it's like these things have changed so much in the last few seasons that it's like it's all very muddled. And we have we have players that fit one role, but they don't fit the other role. And it's, now we have an unbalanced squad, and there almost needs to be a philosophy imposed from the top down. And, you need to be able to work within that. And it's tough.
Yeah,
it is.
And no one on look, we have a lot of very talented players in our squad. Make no mistake about it. Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Aaron Ramsey, Granit Xhaka is skilled. He is a talented player. Mesut Ozil. But no one working on a budget would allocate the resources of that budget into building a squad the way ours looks, where everybody is a 10. We have 2 number 9s and 5 10s. Like that's not how you build a squad, and that's how our squad has been constructed. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not even the players; it's the types. It's the player types that allow us to adapt to the ebbs and flows and the changes in the game. Right, so we have a certain type of player that forces us to play a certain way. If that way is disrupted, we have an inability to react to that. Right, so and the best teams have the ability to play one way. When they're stopped, they're able to overcome and continue to play their way or another way, and that's what his best teams had. So his best teams had multiple ways of playing. They could play without the ball, they could play with the ball. And then he went young. And when he went young, he was forced to do so because of the financial situation. But we all sort of bought into it because we could see what he's doing. We spoke about Southgate earlier on, the England manager. There's a lot of positivity around him because we can see what he's doing. All right, so that's the same with Wenger. We liked the fact we were doing quite well with young players that shouldn't have been doing so well. We liked the fact we played PSV Eindhoven in the last day of the Champions League with 2 19-year-old centre midfielders. And, okay, we got beat, but we could understand where we were going, and we could understand looking forward they were going to be better. But then we got some money in 2014, and money has caused him issues. The expectation of him having to spend that money, when really I'm not sure how comfortable he is having the amount of money with the amount of pressure, with the amount of informed fans that knows exactly what's in the bank, saying, you should be buying this player, you should be buying this player, you should be buying that player. And he bought a couple, didn't know what to do. Got to the Peter Cech summer, didn't do anything. Massive mistake. Did not build upon the stars that he bought. When you buy Alexis Sanchez, you got to think, how do I surround him? He's not just a cost for Alexis Sanchez. Do I buy a Vidal to make sure he's happy? That's what you got to think about. You don't just buy one, you got to think about how you surround them. When you buy Ozil, he should have bought Aubameyang 2 or 3 years ago.
That's what he bought Matthew Flamini for.
Yeah, exactly. Once you got a great pass like that, well, look at how he was successful, finding Ronaldo in his sleep and making sure you give him a similar sprinter to go and find. What do? We give him Giroud. These are the decisions that we're seeing. These are reasons why, Scott, you're right to question his strategy and forward thinking when really we've just been reactive to the holes that we find within the squad. And now we look at this squad, high wage bill, lack of two-way players, looking for the Champions League. If we lose to CSKA, my goodness, last one, turn off the lights, right? Season's over.
Look, I totally agree with that. I just think I don't have a problem. See, I think the way the modern super club has to be constructed, outside of teams like Barca, United, Madrid, City, who have unlimited resources, is that you get a couple of superstars. Maybe those superstars for us right now are Ozil, Aubameyang, and Mkhitaryan. I don't know if he would fall into that category, or whoever one more central midfielder you're going to put on a big wage. Maybe we have to make the decision if that guy's Aaron Ramsey. I know Clive wouldn't do that because he hates Aaron Ramsey, but maybe that's the guy. But then you build with squad players who have the right kind of qualities for the position that you're looking for, right? I don't think you can look at too many teams where you'd say 1 through 11 and also on the bench, there's incredible quality at every position. But I look at Liverpool. Liverpool have a lot of weaknesses. They have a lot of meh players. They have a lot of mediocre players. They have a lot of players that they're putting into positions hoping they can get the job done, the way they use Milner, the way they use Henderson, who I think is a very limited player, Oxlade-Chamberlain, who I don't think has improved at all, despite the fact that the media keep trying to put this veneer of improvement upon him that I don't necessarily see. He's just as inconsistent as he was. But they have Mo Salah, and they have Firmino, and they have a hot and cold, streaky Sadio Mane, and that's where they emphasize their play. Their play is emphasized in Salah, Firmino, and Mane, and that's how they've decided to build their squad. And our emphasis can be Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, and Ozil, or Aubameyang, Lacazette and Ozil, whatever it happens to be. But we just have to be more intelligent about how we surround them. And that means we can't blow £35 million on Granit Xhaka, who, whether you think he's great or not, probably doesn't fit the project. You can't pour a ton of wages into a Kolasinac only to determine that he's not a fit. You can't re-sign Jack Wilshere and expect him to start in central midfield if that's not the player for that position. I mean, you have to, and maybe it is an Aaron Ramsey who gets sacrificed, where you say, we're going to sell him on for big money because there is a midfielder who is a better fit for that role, and that midfielder is Kovacic, or Sarri, Jean-Michael Sarri, whoever it is. That's not where I'm strong. But so we have to solve that problem. So, well, let's close with this. It's Stoke on Sunday. Scott, I mean, I don't think this game means anything to anybody, but we know the manager. We know he not only would struggle to approach it that way, but I have some sympathy for the idea that when you feel like your position is tenuous, you don't feel you can throw any games away. How do you think he will approach this one with the home leg of the Europa League coming up on Thursday?
We're just coming off 2 weeks off, so I would hope that everybody's well rested and things can look strong, and like the team has played together. So I would really hope that you see some good cohesion and togetherness, and that things look well. All of those intangibles that you're able to work through with practice. So I really think that this should be a team that Arsenal blow away. Stoke are not good. They probably hopefully will be relegated, because I really don't care for Stoke all that much. So even with the Europa League, that's going to be 4 days away. So you have a game on Sunday and a game on Thursday. So it's not like there's a huge that you have to worry about a game in 3 days that you have to worry about. So I think that this should be a game where you field a fairly strong team, and you work on things that you want to be able to use against CSKA, and be able to kind of use this as a warm up to get you going, and maybe get a 2 or 3 goal lead, and then take some of the guys off at 60, 75 minutes, and get them a rest.
So you would not rotate at all for Thursday?
No, I think this is a one you come out, you get a strong match. We've had 2 weeks off, so it's not like anybody should really be tired. Maybe
they may have played for their country.
Maybe Ramsey. That's true, but these were pretty light, friendly kind of.
Well,
things
Ozil didn't play in the second one. All right, so you would go full strength. You'd try to get them sharp for Thursday. I might have to disagree a little bit there, but Clive, what about you? I mean, would you go as full strength as you can to get sharp for Thursday as well?
Yeah, I would do. Give or take 1 or 2 players, I would do. The people, obviously, the club know the ones who are on the edge, so I'd look after them. But I would go strong, and the reason why, Elliot, I go strong. We need to get the fans back, right? We need to get the momentum back in the club, right? So I know that you've just missed a game, but every game does mean something, right? So we need to create some momentum. We need to get a series of wins. And yes, Stoke means nothing for our season, but, I've been to the ground a couple of times lately, and, mate, it's not a good place with these big rows of seats that are empty. It's not a good feeling, and we need to get those seats filled up again. And I think by chucking games like Stoke and treating them as not important, I think is a mistake. I think we need to go out there and really take them apart and score like 5 goals if we can, and really get the atmosphere going, really get people talking about positive things again. Aubameyang gets a hat-trick, Lacazette comes back. Our next podcast is completely different if they both score 2 goals each. Do you know what I mean? It's a completely different mindset. We talk about next season.
You think it'll be a better podcast? Because that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think. But, we talk about 2 up front. We talk about positivity. We talk about how we can support them. There is much to be gained from really taking this game seriously and putting them to the sword, right? And I hope we do. I'd love to see 2 up front. I'd love to see a little slight change. I'd love to see them get smashed 5, because I don't like against Moscow. Another home game, we look good, we carry the momentum, and then we go to the away game with confidence, right? And that's how you build confidence, not by chucking the game with a weak team.
Yeah, we play at home on Thursday, and I think if it all falls right for us, we can end the tie on Thursday. I think CSKA will be nervous. Most of our Europa League opponents have been really nervous and started games really slow. I think if we are fresh and firing and ready to go, that we can blitz them, really put them on their back heels, and really end the tie in that first leg. And I think that's about energy. I think it's about pressing them. I think it's about getting right on top of them. I think it's Ramsey full of running. And if Lacazette does get a start, he's full of running. And Danny Welbeck's, as sharp and firing as he can be. I just think that we can physically dominate CSKA and intimidate them off the pitch. And I just want to make sure that the levels are right and that the team is set up focused on Thursday. And I agree with you that losing to Stoke at home on Sunday would be an unthinkably bad result. But I still think a quarterfinal in Europe on a Thursday night will have the right atmosphere and have the right support. And so I'm not as worried about that because I just think the occasion will feel big enough to lift the crowd on its own. I would start Lacazette if he's fit to start because I think that getting an hour under his belt would be really, really important if the manager wants to start him, although I'm already on the record for saying I think the manager will probably try to go with the same team he went with against Milan, so I'm not necessarily expecting that. I'm not saying heavy rotation necessarily. Obviously, I would not use Koscielny on Sunday. I mean, will you guys at least go with me on that?
You know what? I normally would. And funny enough, I read something in the week that he's discovered the cure to his ankle problems. Yeah. That's probably the best message I've read this week about Arsenal. Because I thought he was dead, right?
So let's watch him
closely. No, I actually wouldn't play him because he did play in the second French game, right? So not the first one. So he played a full 90 in the second one. So I'd rest him. He's the one I'd rest.
All right, there you go. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with that one too. Koscielny, to me it reminds me of when Arteta said that he refound his legs doing Pilates. So when we knew that he really lost them. So
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he broke his legs off doing Pilates. I mean, you never know how this thing can go. I mean, God knows if I even walked into a yoga studio, I'd have to be taken out on a stretcher. So. All right, well, look, let's leave it there. I could rant and rave, but I think the key right now is just a nice, easy, injury-free Sunday. What I will tell you is Charlie Adam is suspended for our game on Sunday, and that will at least mean that we have a better chance of coming through the game without someone choking our players to death, which is nice. Always nice when you can avoid that because he is a hideous cunt, and I cannot stand him. In any event, we will definitely come to you with a podcast after the Stoke game. I imagine Scott will be back in his box where he belongs. Scott, I hope you don't have a problem with that.
No problem at all.
All right. Well, in the meantime, it's been a pleasure having you outside of the box, in this box, in a new box. Sometimes it's nice to get in a new box. Behave.
What's in the box?
7 reference. There you go. All right. Scott's on Twitter at _that_crab. You can find his great work at crabstats.blogspot.com and theshortfuse.com. Scott will be back with a more statastic section in the next pod. Scott, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. He will be back with us for the next pod, just doing regular Clive stuff. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can and should block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review and write terrible, nasty, awful, horrible things about Tim and Paul and Stoke because they're cunts and we hate them. So we will take the rest of the day off, but we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Stoke 0.